All right, the medium-term budget presented today. Now, before it was presented, the National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union, Nehawu, had threatened action should Treasury fail to table suitable wage increases. The Finance Minister presenting that statement today, saying that the high wage bill for government workers, in fact, is one of the threats that the economy is contending with. And Enoch Godongwana outlined how government would pay for a 1,000 Rand once-off gratuity for civil servants. That was used to encourage workers to accept a 1.5% wage increase earlier. For reaction, we're joined by Nehawu's President, Michael Shingange. Thank you for being with us. So tell me if I'm getting this, if I'm giving the context for us correctly. 2018, there was an agreement, an above inflation wage increase for government workers. Since then, government has said it cannot afford that. And then we come down to 1.5%, but that's playing out in the courts. What did you hope to hear today, and did you hear it?
No, thank you very much for having us, and good evening to you and your viewers. No, first, let's separate things. The 2018, there was an agreement that was negotiated. That was inflation plus a percentage of 0.5% increase. It was paid 2018, 2019. Government reneged from it in 2020. That's why we are now in court. We are just waiting for the outcome from the Constitutional Court. Fast forward to 2021, there was a negotiation which resulted in the 1.5% and the 1,000. That we are still waiting for the implementation this month. So that's what I think the minister will have said. It's what he has made provision for. But what we're looking forward for is that obviously by this time, we're supposed to be discussing and concluding the negotiations for 2022 and 2023 financial year. And previously, the previous ministers will pronounce on the wage bill in Parliament before the negotiations start. And one thing that came out from today's minister's input was that he will not want to negotiate in the media, which we appreciate. He has not had an opportunity to sit in the room with the unions and speak. By the way, he's not the minister that leads negotiations. It's actually the DPSA minister that leads the negotiations. But we appreciate that there was no pronouncement at the level of Treasury before the engagement itself with the parties that are involved is taking place.
All right, so those negotiations will still take place. He did say, looking back at that previous wage hike that you're talking about, that government reneged on down the line, that if it is implemented, that if you win in the Constitutional Court, he said, I think it could be disastrous for South Africa. Your response?
Well, we don't say any disaster. Actually, what we think is a disaster is what is happening now. I think civil servants have already shown how they are unhappy about what has happened, including the fact that the morale of the civil servant is very low now, that you can't promise workers an increase, sign it on the dotted line without any guard on your head. Similarly, that you have been doing over the years since 1994, and all of a sudden you say you want to subject collective bargaining to court. That's what is a disaster for us. That's unprecedented. Actually, another disaster that's coming is if indeed the courts tend to agree with the state that this agreement was unconstitutional, because we don't know how the government is going to go out of this thing. Because clearly, if it is the fact that money was spent unlawfully, it means government will be forced to recoup money from the employees. We don't see how that the government is going to proceed with that. But if indeed government wants to rely on court instead of honoring the obligation that they have with its employees, and they rely on court whether to pay or not, for us that is a disaster. It will not be a disaster. In fact, it will bring stability if we win and government honor the court, even though they did not have to wait for the court. But if we win and the court rules in our favor and government honor that, that will bring stability in the public service. It will lift the morale of the civil servant, and we think that government will achieve some of its objectives in as far as delivering service to our people is concerned.
Yeah.
As things stand now, there's no motivation, there's no incentives on the public servants to pursue the objectives of government, while they perceive the government as crooks who tricks them into signing an agreement and later renege on them and run to court for the court to bail them out.
However, the figure that was used today, I think, was this total spending on civil servants, that's on government workers, accounts for 37% of total expenditure, so more than a third. What would you say to South Africans who say that's excessive, that's crazy?
It's not excessive. That's not crazy. We don't know what you compare it with. In fact, if you compare it internationally, it's actually stabilized. In fact, it's not even 37%. It's at 35% as we speak. If you consider the fact that actually the civil service headcount has gone down as opposed to the population that is ever growing. If you want to have what the government preaches about a developmental state that is capable, that is growing population. You can't do that when year in and year out you are having fewer nurses, you are having fewer teachers, the classes are full, you are having fewer porters in hospitals, and all those of employees that are needed to deliver service to our people are actually lower. It can't be correct. So what government needs to look at is exactly where is this wage bill, public service wage bill, is concentrated at? Is it at a level where the service delivery is supposed to be, or is it a managerial level, in particular at the level of cabinet, at the level of the chief directors, and even the SOEs executives, including some in the municipalities? Yeah. The issue of attacking only the public sector workers that are in the PCBC, that are rendering healthcare services and education and home affairs, while you can see the queues in home affairs, how long are they, and the staffing that's there, it's actually not fair. There's a calculation that needs to be made about the totality of administering a public service. That does not exclusively speak to the PCBC, but everything else that derives its budget from the public purse. It is unfair to attack the public servants only at the service delivery level.
Would you accept a situation where we say as a country, let's treat our teachers better? Let's look at people in health and education, those crucial sectors like you say, but elsewhere maybe restructure if there are government departments bloated in management like you say. Would you accept some restructuring and some retrenchments in fact?
We can never accept the retrenchment on the people who are not responsible for the bloated managerial positions, staffing. Our point is that there's no space to retrench teachers. There's no room to retrench nurses.
No, I'm saying in other government departments, would you accept restructuring? If we focus on where more staff is needed and say, let's fix education and health, would you accept restructuring in other governmental departments?
And restructuring has been taking place in this country since 1996. You remember that we had a big battle here in the public service in terms of restructuring. But of course, we can never stand opposed to a restructuring that is supposed to enhance service delivery, because our business as a public servant, our business as this government, is to make sure that service delivery is enhanced. So any restructuring that talks to enhancing that which we are about, we will not oppose to that. However, it should not leave workers to be worse off, particularly the workers that are down level, who are not responsible for the troubles that we are in now as a country. All
right, thank you very much. Nehawu President Mike Shingange. Let's take a short break.